Welcome into the PFF podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson for our Mailbag edition. We apologize for the slight delay this week. Had a hectic week, but we're back here answering all of your questions. Perhaps our favorite podcast of the week. Remember, you guys can hit us up at podcasts@profootballfocus.com. That's multiple podcasts with your great emails, questions, suggestions. If you guys haven't listened to the previous ones, they're evergreen. There's some game-changing stuff in there, Sam.
Absolutely.
People suggesting great ways to play football and change the game.
People are discovering them by going into the back archive. So our Twitter buddy, Arif Hassan, just listened to the one about punting the long snap.
Oh, yeah. I see that. I'm seeing the tweet right now.
Gold. So, yeah, if you want to find out how you can revolutionize the game of football, just dig back into our archive of mailbag episodes. We've got some more today, though.
Did you have some on Twitter as well, or just the ones that we have here? I'm
not going to lie, I didn't have time to look through the Twitter ones this week. So
I think I saved one that we can look at.
A collection of mailbag ones. I haven't really combed through Twitter.
Either way, let's get into it. First one. Dear Sam and Steve, on your most recent PFF podcast, you guys mentioned the Pro Bowl level play of Browns cornerback Jason McCourty. McCourty had been a liability for the Titans the past few seasons, so it came as a huge surprise to see him play at such a high level through 7 weeks of the season. So here to explain. He's
explain. This is my little notations. Anything in green.
Oh, your words are in green.
Yeah, anything in green is where it's not the emailer anymore. It's us editorializing. That's the word.
Oh, okay. So that helps.
Yeah.
So here's what he had to say. As you both know, Devin McCourty has been one of the premier defensive backs of the past decade, while brother Jason has had relatively much less individual and team success by comparison. Well, over this past summer, when brother Jason was eventually released by the Titans, as a favor to his twin, Devin decided he would swap places with him to see if his twin brother could finally get a ring in New England, given a better overall team and coaching staff. Knowing that no one would notice, Devin would pretend to be Jason for the next year and sign with a crappy team like the Browns so that he could fly under the radar, while his brother would finally be making a Super Bowl run as a member of the Patriots. Sincerely, your friend, Brandon Nguyen. Nguyen?
I think he's given you phonetic pronunciation of his name, and you've still managed to butcher it.
Nguyen.
Yeah.
Which I usually pronounced Win. Remember Dat Win?
Yeah.
The linebacker for the Cowboys, Texas A&M? Nguyen.
Okay.
I'm reading the pronunciation.
You are, sort of.
Oh, P.S. I agree with Sam that Steve has been begging. Oh, just forget about that. I really haven't even read these yet, which actually makes these more fun. I
have no problem with this theory. I think this is flawless. The only logical explanation for Jason McCourty complete about facing his career is that we're actually watching Devin McCourty play cornerback for the Cleveland Browns.
Right. We mentioned it last week. He'd had a couple good seasons, Jason, and then he was in the 40s and the 30s the last couple of years in PFF grades. I kind of like this theory. This is a legit theory. And not going to lie, Devin McCourty has been a little off this year. The guy we think is Devin McCourty.
Yeah, been a little off. And, of course, even if Jason McCourty had been declining at cornerback, maybe you might have got a little bit of a revival at safety. So he could kind of hide himself a little bit better playing safety for the Patriots.
I don't know. This is kind of breaking news, though, because Devin McCourty hasn't really played cornerback since 2012.
True.
And if he's playing that well in Cleveland, once he gets back to New England, Belichick might have a new role for him.
Would also explain some of the coverage busts in New England, that the guy playing safety for them isn't actually Devin McCourty.
That is absolutely right. And Devin McCourty himself has had a few coverage busts, and if you read the scouting report on Devin McCourty, it's just always in the right position, never misses a tackle.
Never makes a mistake.
He's just a safe player. Here he is busting coverages.
Yeah, because it's his brother. He doesn't know the defense.
Wow. Well, sorry, New England fans. Jason McCourty is apparently playing safety. Does this count as breaking news?
Maybe. I mean, it's not our news to break. We're relaying the theory of somebody else.
No, but I think I'm a believer.
I'm sold.
I'm in on this. This is Kennedy level type of stuff.
How do we prove this?
I see our player participation, guys. I bet Nate, our top player participation.
Think Nate can tell the difference between identical twins?
Yes. Nate has some sort of hey, Devin has a scar on his left elbow or something like that. There's something that Nate would know. So we might need to phone him in and see if there's a possibility that this happened.
An incriminating tattoo hidden below the clothing somewhere that Nate knows about and nobody else?
Well, yeah. I mean, his PP accuracy is incredible. Do you think Tiki and Rondé ever? Do you think Tiki ever lined up in the slot for Tampa Bay? And Rondé just 1 week randomly just grabbed a few carries for the Giants.
They were sort of significantly different body size though because of the
true.
bulk. Tiki bulked up for the running back. Rondé stayed pretty lithe to play defensive back.
What about when Tiki had all those fumbling issues and then he got out of them? Do you think that was?
I think it was all Rondé.
Rondé for like
Rondé
2 years.
Fumbled the ball like 7 times, and then they do. All right, that's enough of that.
Right.
We're going to get caught now.
What about when they're out of the playoffs? Like week 16 or 17, like just
giggles,
just to see what would happen.
I'd have gone for it.
Hey, I like the theory. That's a good job, Brandon Nguyen. We have another email. This is Dear Mr. Palazzolo. That's addressed to me, Sam.
It is.
I want to thank you.
We updated the tally.
We do need. Taylor's not here.
No.
We need somebody to do tallies for us because we're needy. I want to thank you on behalf of the football watching community for giving up your illustrious baseball career in order to better serve us, the fans. Truly echoes of Billy Beane. My idea this week has to do with an illegal block in the back. I think you could line a defensive end up backwards at the line of scrimmage.
This I love, by the way, as an idea.
After the snap, he could take 1 or 2 explosive steps into the backfield for which he could not be blocked. So he's taking picture
yeah, you can't be blocked
like a
in the back.
backpedal.
You can't be blocked in the back. So just backpedal your way into the backfield as your pass rush.
So he backpedals into the backfield. He turns around right in the QB's face. I also humbly request redress for my line jitsu idea last week.
Yeah, that was one I think that I decided was not worth even talking about.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Your faithful servant, Bill C. So, look, Bill, I appreciate the kind words, first of all.
I'm just going to point out that your fan here has some spelling issues. My fans
That's
send
why
in,
I stuttered through a little bit.
Exactly. My fans send in well-edited, grammatically correct emails. Yours...
Well, that's because you're sending them, of course.
No. I certainly wouldn't put in well-spelled, grammatically correct emails. I'm just saying.
You send them to our edit team.
If we're looking for a caliber of email... Having said that,
please
I do love this idea.
Don't trash my fans, please. Don't trash my
Having said that, I love this idea. It's perfect. You cannot be blocked in the back, therefore just present your back to the blocker, and you can't be blocked.
I'm actually speechless in awe of this theory right here. You don't even have to be good. You can grab any defensive end now. So this will change the game on the NFL, right? You don't spend any money on defensive ends, right? You have two backwards facing defensive ends. You might be a little slow off the ball.
Well, now you get to the point where you have to develop this specific movement sequence of spinning out of your back pedal into a tackle of the quarterback.
So the thing is,
that's going to require some practice.
Maybe you don't need a defensive end. You can get a corner or a safety to now be an edge rusher.
Sure.
You can get your most athletic guy, a guy who's comfortable backpedaling and flipping his hips.
I would like to see what would happen if somebody attempted this. Because it's one of those ideas that's so out there, I can't even picture the reaction to it.
Right. It'd be incredible.
I mean, I don't know what would happen if 2 defensive ends attempted to backpedal off the line of scrimmage around or towards the tackles.
This is just something I need to see.
Yes.
I mean, forget.
We've got some ins with local high school teams. Can we get one of those to break it out when they're in the middle of a 35-point drubbing?
Absolutely, but I wouldn't trust the high school refs to know how to handle this.
Well, that's true. Well, you got to inform them beforehand. It's like those trick plays where you got to give the ref a nudge. Look, we're going to do this.
Hey, here's something we're going to do.
It's legal. We've run it through the system. Just be aware of it. Don't throw the flag, blow the whistle when we run this, okay? So it's same deal, right? You just tell the refs, look, we're going to break out something magical later in this game. Just be on the lookout. Don't throw the flag.
You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah. I think we have to see this.
Hey, I'm all in. I like this theory. And, you trashed my listeners, but Bill C., my faithful servant here, as he signed off, I think he's got a great idea. So we need to get this high school level, college level somewhere. I want to see it happen. We have another one. This is from Aaron from Maryland. Simple question, asking if Calais Campbell is a legit defensive player of the year at the midpoint of the season, leading the way with 10 sacks this season. I will say his 10 sacks are the official NFL total, but at PFF, we don't believe in the half sack. We give full credit when you get to the quarterback. So what does he have, 12 for us, Sam?
Sure.
I think he has 12. Put you on the spot. Yeah, he has 12.
Again.
He has 12. DeMarcus Lawrence has 10. So, yes, is Calais Campbell a legitimate defensive player of the year?
It is
candidate,
amazing
at least.
how hard it is to sustain that level, sack record levels of sacks. You know what I mean? Like, he got 5 in game 1.
Right.
Now he's at 10, which is still pretty, 12, which is still pretty phenomenal through 7 weeks of the season, but it's just about on pace. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
He needs to be at that pace for the rest of the year to get to this record.
We're talking about how
crazy.
incredible it is.
I mean, you need one of those 5 sack type games in your season to have any shot at that sack record.
Or you need Brett Favre to just take a knee.
That too.
But yeah, no, he's up there. He's absolutely up there. The fun part about the Jacksonville Jaguars is they have one in the secondary as well in Jalen Ramsey. I mean, they have 2 legitimate defensive player of the year type of candidates. Yes, I would say Campbell is up there. The other way to note it, and when you're doing awards, I don't think you should ever look at awards like this, but when you look at how poor the Arizona Falcons,
The Arizona Falcons?
Wow.
They are poor.
The Arizona Cardinals and their pass rush is. That was amazing. The Arizona Cardinals, their poor pass rush without Calais Campbell. Now, that's not part of his defensive player of the year, resume, so to speak, but I think it just shows one of the most important offseason pickups for of the NFL.
Absolutely. He has transformed both defenses with one move.
All right, next email. Guys, please forward this to Steve, that's me, so he knows that there is at least one listener in the USA, happens to be Cleveland, Ohio, who is not in cahoots with Sam. This is good to know. I appreciate this. Also, what do you think of a team like Miami or Jacksonville trading a high pick to get Jacoby Brissett? He grades out okay, and we know more about him as an NFL player than we do any of the other QB prospects in the draft. Go Browns, Aaron. So far I have a listener that you've called creepy, and then a guy who had to...
I didn't call the listener creepy. I said taking the whole Steve thing to back tattoos was getting creepy.
You've called all my fans creepy, but that's okay. Now I have a Browns fan, so you can keep your comments to yourself. I have fans out here.
Fan. He just said he was from Cleveland, Ohio.
He said go. He signed off Go Browns.
Oh, did he? Okay, then he's probably a Browns fan. All right.
That would be my takeaway.
Yeah,
from that.
good deduction.
But Aaron, yes, I do appreciate you being a Steve fan. Team Steve, # Team Steve so far. Okay, so Jacoby Brissett. So he's asking about Miami or Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Assuming we're talking about for this season because they're both
Trade
in the
deadline.
playoff race, trade deadline type of pick. What are your thoughts? Jacoby Brissett, bringing him in to be their guy down the stretch.
So I think the theory, to an extent, is sound in that, yes, we know more about Jacoby Brissett now than we do about any rookie that you're going to come through the system next year, et cetera, et cetera. We know more about him than you know about Garoppolo at this point, I would think. Probably A.J. McCarron as well.
Maybe that's part of the issue, though.
Yes, that's where I was going next. I think you do know more about Brissett than you know about probably any other available quarterback, but a lot of what you know is not good. So there's still a lot of bad play from Jacoby Brissett. I think the word that I keep using every time we talk about him is intriguing.
Yes.
He has talent. He has some abilities. He can make some big plays, and he has played well in games. He's also played very badly in games and has a tendency to throw or attempt to throw pick sixes, which is never a good thing for an offense.
That's not good for the offense.
Having said that, so does Blake Bortles. So, if any team was going to do it, Jacksonville is the one I think that is really interesting because they don't need a quarterback to be amazing. They have had games where they've basically said, Blake, whatever you do, don't even try and pass. I don't need you to not, I don't need you to just be
14 times
safe.
against Pittsburgh, yeah.
I don't need you to just be safe with the ball. I don't want you putting the ball in the air. Turn around, hand it off to one of those guys, and step back.
And in theory, that's something any NFL quarterback can do.
Yeah, well, in theory, that's something you can do.
I do have good handoffs. Zach and I talked about Bortles a little bit on the podcast, the QB Analysis podcast, and my thing is, how do you take this gunslinger like Bortles and rein him in? And they've been able to do that. He's not turning the ball over like he has in the past. They are protecting him. So in the way that Jacksonville's constructed, which is great defense right now, and they are a great defense right now, and a run game where it doesn't matter if it's Leonard Fournette or T.J. Yeldon or Chris. I mean, they're just running the ball 25, 30 times a game. In theory, whether it's Blake Bortles doing it, whether it's Jacoby Brissett doing it, they're fine. So I don't know if they need. I don't know that Brissett's not better than Bortles. I don't think right now. I don't think that you're. You have to look at Bortles. At least has a 2015 season under his belt, where he showed that he could make big throws, and Yeah, I mean, he was boom or bust. He was in that, the gunslinger edge of things. But
his ceiling may not be higher than Bortles, but I think the things they're doing right now to make Bortles viable would make Brissett better.
Maybe. I mean, you're talking about Brissett throwing pick sixes and all that stuff, and I know it's part of it's because he's got to play from behind with Indianapolis, and that's what we were trashing Bortles for in past years. I understand. But my point is I don't think he's like a clear-cut, okay, now you're upgraded, and now you're making a playoff push because you have Brissett over Bortles at this point.
I would say he's an upgrade, but I think it's I don't think it's a large enough one that you can throw a big pick at it and be fine.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's the kind of thing where if he was available for not very much, I might pull the trigger, but that's not going to happen. I mean, the Colts are in a weird spot because they basically can have him in the shop window for the rest of the season to potentially flip him for a big pick.
Right.
But he seems like the kind of guy where the longer he plays, the lower the value becomes.
Oh, I agree.
They almost needed to play him for those first 2 games and then sit him down for the rest of the year with a pretend injury and put Scott Tolzien out there.
That's what works in the NFL, man. I'm telling you. Those couple throws, my famous one back in 1998, Rob Johnson went 20 for 24 in one game. He was awesome in one game, and the Jags flipped him for the 10th overall pick next year to the Bills, and they got Fred Taylor.
It is amazing what just showing a ceiling can do for your career in the NFL. If you show for one game that you can do something at a high level, you're set for life.
Well,
teams will always chase that one game again.
The funnier part to me is that he was just evaluated by the NFL, right?
Yeah.
He just came out in 2016. You have all of this college film on him. He goes in the 3rd round, which was even higher than people expected him to go. And then you have 1 or 2 good games in the NFL, and you throw that out the window like, oh, we valued him as a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round 2 years ago. Now he's a 1st. Now he's a 2nd. Same thing with A.J. McCarron. He was valued as a 5th round pick, played a half of good football, and then there were 1st and 2nd round rumors about him.
The problem with that is that when you get guys that do get it and you've swung on a miss in terms of draft evaluation, like Russell Wilson, though that was a weird one because a lot of people kind of saw that coming, and he still went in the 3rd.
There's a difference between a complete swing and a miss.
No, there is, but my point is, if you're 2 games into Russell Wilson's career, everybody's like, we missed on this. Like, he's already one of the best quarterbacks in this class. We're pretty sure this guy's a 1st round pick going forward. After 2 games, you would happily reevaluate your 3rd round status on Russell Wilson.
Agreed.
The thing is, he kept it going. Like, you were right on that one. The problem is, the 2 games in A.J. McCarron, 2 games in Jacoby Brissett, it could be a Russell Wilson thing where you're like, yeah, we blew it. This guy is way better than we thought. Or it could just be those were 2 really good games, and now we're going to go back to, what we thought he was.
Well, the bigger thing was Russell Wilson played like 2, 3, 4 really good games right off the bat, and he looked the part and was good and he just did it all, right? Brissett had some flashes. McCarron's had some flashes. That's the difference. Kirk Cousins had some flashes. Now, ultimately, that's been pretty good.
And also,
for him.
you get the preseason thing as well. I mean, Dak Prescott was another one who almost immediately you understood that you blew it on. But Dak Prescott was phenomenal all the way through preseason.
That's true.
That's what kind of won him that job.
You're right. Maybe first impressions. And Zach and I talk about that all the time. Sometimes we analyze these guys inside and out, and sometimes Zach's like, look, what if I just watch a game, make an impression on this guy, and believe in it?
That's what I'm doing all season.
And that's college. What you're doing. That's what
I'm
you're doing.
Going through
college.
Every top prospect, one game at a time, analyzing them and writing them off or crowning them immediately.
We all get assigned various games during the year. Sam's had essentially one game of all of the top prospects, and so far only Baker Mayfield.
Quick rundown. Sam Darnold sucks. Josh Allen sucks. Josh Rosen is white Jameis Winston. Baker Mayfield is awesome, despite throwing an interception and attempting to throw another one in that game. And then there was the kid from the college that I always get backwards. Where's he from? University of Texas, San Antonio, right?
UTSA, yeah.
There you go.
Dalton Sturm.
The Roadrunners.
Yes.
He's okay. He's interesting. So that's a quick rundown of all the quarterbacks I've done. I haven't got to...
I feel like we need to write this up on the... I want a running tally on the wall.
Sam's one game.
Sam's scouting report. This is going to be the draft guide.
I need Lamar Jackson. I need to get a Louisville game.
Oh, we'll talk to Ben. So, Ben, we need Sam to do a Lamar Jackson game. Did you see what you have this weekend yet?
I'm not. I'm away.
Oh, that's right. You're away. My apologies. So we'll get you a Lamar Jackson game in the future. The other question, though, was for Miami, and I'm going to give a short answer. Brissett in Miami. I like Matt Moore. I think Matt Moore gives them a better shot than Jay Cutler did. I think Matt Moore gives them a better shot than Jacoby Brissett, and that's just where I am on that.
The Jay Cutler thing is seeming like quite a bad move at this point.
I think it looked like a bad move right off the bat.
Yeah, but now it really looks bad.
All right, we have another. Oh, wow. Okay. All hail Steve. I'm just reading now. Steve is the only true PFF prophet, and Sam doesn't know what he's talking about. In parentheses, there, Steve, are you happy? Can you stop whining like a baseball player now? There's no whining in football. Everyone knows that. What is this now?
I just copied the email across.
Now that we got that out of the way, I've got a question for the podcast, which I love. Good work, Sam. I thought this was a good email for me.
Yeah, it's going off the rails.
Did he screw up his smiley face there, or was that you?
That's probably me.
Some stuff about salary caps. Those are your words.
Yeah, no, he had a question about salary cap stuff that no, I'm not doing that one. We're doing the next question.
Oh, so we're not even going to read this question?
No, we're reading this question, just not the bit about the salary caps
I got
that
you.
I cut out. You are terrible at understanding this editing stuff that I've got going on here. I've got a beautiful system with colored in green to editorialize my edits in this email, and you're just butchering them.
Makes for good podcasting when I awkwardly trudge through it.
Stumble through my editing.
All right. Also, as far as an innovative way for you to discuss, how about a new desperation lateral play strategy? When a team does their lateral play formation, I think that the only lineman that they should have be their center so that they can get off a clean snap, but the tackles and guards should be replaced by skill blockers, tight ends and fullbacks, etc. And the play should be drawn up in a way that the upfront blocking matters less, moving pocket, jet sweep, etc. This way, when the chaos starts for the laterals, you have 9, not the quarterback or center, quicker players who have good hands around. So essentially, you're saying, and I have seen this before.
Well, this is exactly what I was saying before. Is that these plays die the second it gets to alignment.
Right.
So you get chaos going. Everyone's doing the lateral, running around, doing their little chaotic play. It's never going anywhere. But there's a chance because each one of these guys is a playmaker, and then it goes to the tackle. And the tackle catches the ball just about and then just stumbles into a tackle and falls over and the play's dead.
I see this suggestion all the time.
And J.J. Watt murders him.
Oh, God, Bodine.
It's basically as soon as it hits an offensive lineman, the play's dead because that guy has no ability with the football whatsoever, and he's sunk. Get rid of him. Why is he on the field?
Well, especially if you have this incredible dual threat quarterback as one of your backups, and you set something up where you really get him freed up down the sideline, do a cross field, set it up almost like a kickoff return, right? And maybe that's it. Get your kickoff return team out there.
So there's another guy that asked a question, I think, that I deleted because it was another rugby chat, but it kind of falls into this. Was basically saying, no, it wasn't. It was on Twitter. Somebody said on Twitter, why don't teams get a rugby coach in for one session, one practice a season, just for this play? Just to have something in the bag for this crazy lateral chaos at the end of a game that you need you need to go 95 yards in one play. And the reason is because it takes more than one practice to learn how to play rugby. Pretty simple.
Right.
But there is something to, it probably wouldn't take that long to work a simple line move with rugby around one end, which is basically just being able to simply lateral one out to your right, draw the guy in front of you. And if you really want to get complicated, the first guy then loops around the back end and gives you an extra man on the end.
You just described Navy football. I mean, this doesn't sound like it's that complicated. That's the option. It's running the option.
It is, but you need like a line of them. It can't just be a speed option with one guy outside and one guy inside. You got to have a line of like 5 or 6 guys that can all lateral one to the next, drawing a man. It's the same concept. I mean, that's basically what option football is. It's just a little more complex, and you can't do that silly wrist flicking option pitch thing. You actually need to learn how to pass it properly. But rugby is all about getting a man advantage in space,
right,
which is basically what you need to do in order to score on that play. So it's exactly what you need. It's just you need more than one practice to be able to learn how to do it. And given how little time teams have with players in full pads anyway, nobody is dedicating their time to that.
So first off, the initial suggestion of putting skill positions at guard and tackle, I like that. I see it on Twitter all the time. I see people suggest that. I'm all in. I'm for that. You'll have a cleaner play. The other point that you make, when people make the point of, when you run the Wildcat, it makes the defense spend X amount of time preparing for it and stuff, but it also takes your own practice time to actually master that thing. So, anything that you do offensively, you have to actually master first. So it does take some time. I like the suggestion about the skill position players. Quick break to tell you guys about our friends over at Draft. That's draft.com or Draft in your app store. We've been working with these guys for a few months now. Great way to play fantasy football. They've got full season leagues. They've got 1-week leagues. It's draft, set it, forget it. Don't even worry about your team. You don't have to worry about waiver wire. You don't have to worry about trades or injuries. All my full season teams are still going. They're grabbing your best players every single week. Best ball leagues. The one-on-one stuff is good. It's not just NFL, too. There's NBA, NHL. Sam, I just won an NHL game the other night. I did a little
Really?
NHL head-to-head game. And I don't know anything about the NHL, but I wanted to play.
I was going to say, did you do any research on this, or did you just...
I didn't, but the Buffalo goalie really had a great game for me, which was huge. Only 1 goal against, had the win. So, hey, look, I won some money, and you guys can win real money, too.
I'm currently 3rd in my literally set it and forget it league, in that I only just remembered I was doing this. Apparently I'm 3rd.
Yeah, see? This is great. It's easy to play. There's real money, and we'll give you a free $3 game. All you have to do is make your first deposit, use the promo code PFF, and you will get a free $3 game. Games start every few minutes. Like I said, there's a variety of types of games, and you can play $1 games, $10 games, $100 games, whatever you want. It's over at draft.com, or search Draft in your app store. All right, this next one, I didn't catch the subject line, but it says, hoping that subject line catches your attention.
It's yeah, that's true. That was my bad. My editing bad.
I absolutely love Guinness,
It was something to do with Guinness.
but it is exorbitantly better. Did I read that right? Exorbitantly better in Ireland. Also, I really enjoy Steve, and he handles the masses of love of Sam and his buttery smooth Irish accent very well. Oh. But I would love to get Renner on some more podcasts. What is this?
This is, I don't know.
We'll get some more Renner, too.
Mailbag episode.
And great crack. He's got a hashtag revive Renner. Yeah, I don't know about that. We're lucky we even let him back on this year. So my question is this. Could PFF come up with a model using back testing to an extent, 80 to 90%, to accurately predict game winners once you had player grades?
Yes, effectively asking, can we predict winners using PFF data? And I think we're getting to that point. That's
We are.
what the analytics guys are working on. We're going to have some kind of predictive look at the rest of the season once we hit the midway point. The guys
Yes.
are going to be working on that. So, yeah, I think we're getting to that stage.
So here's where we have been as a company. We've been a young company in theory for the last 8 to 10 years. A small company, right? Young for years. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we've been a small company for years where to survive, it's just been like move forward, look forward, look to the next year. How do we expand? How do we add more? This past year, we finally put some resources into looking back, into saying, hey, we have all this data dating back to 2006 in the NFL and 2014 in college. We now have an analytics team designated to do this. We have some very smart people out there, and we have Eric Eager as well. And these guys are working on models, and you could see a lot of it on the site. It's part of Elite, correct? Our picks, our weekly picks?
Yeah, the weekly picks are part of Elite. Obviously, they do the lock of the week on the podcast. They do the top 4 or 5 as an article out there. And then if you're part of Elite, you get the full slate of picks for every single game.
In the 5 picks that they put on the site right now, and this is just scratching the surface on our predictive work, the 5 picks are the most confident picks of the week against the spread. And their record so far is something like 18-7-1. I mean, it's a ridiculous record. So if you're into
Yeah, they were 4-1 last week. Only Arizona let them down.
yeah, and if you're into
The Arizona
quality
Falcons.
picks, the Arizona Falcons, exactly. They're not good in London.
No.
When they're playing on the Jaguars' home turf. So if you're into picks, these guys are doing a great job. But this is kind of like a snapshot of using that data and historical data to predict the future a little bit. So we're doing a lot there. We're doing a lot with quarterbacks, and we're doing a lot with weather and injuries and all that. So there is a lot going on. And then on the PFF side, it's a matter of figuring out how much of this becomes public-facing, how much of this is just so valuable that our NFL team customers, of which we have 30, will want this data and want to keep it for themselves. So it's a great question. It's something we're working on. I'm excited about it. I do question your affinity for Mike Renner, but
Yeah,
other than
strange
that,
one.
it
That's
is.
the first unsolicited Renner email we've got. We've got to add him to the tally. A little asterisk at the end. 1 for Renner.
1 for Renner. Yeah, on the emails. He's almost up to me.
No, you've got a bunch more. This is some serious editing is required to that. You've had granted they've been begged for, but you have had some emails since then.
I have not begged. So this next one, that was from Taylor, by the way. This next one, I
Not
love
podcast Taylor, I assume. Having said that, I didn't check the email.
It might be
could have been
Podcast
from
Taylor.
Podcast Taylor.
He does, yeah. He asks a lot of questions. I love Wednesday mornings. Why? Because I know I get to wake up and vicariously speak to the smartest man in tackle football through his vertically blessed administrative assistant. What? Questions for Mr. Monson only. First off, this is why we apologize, too, because it's Thursday, and he didn't get to wake up Wednesday morning to
True.
hear you. He called me a vertically blessed administrative assistant.
Yeah, he did.
This is spam. You ask it then.
I don't think you can delete it from the document. You
Well,
might have
now-
been able to delete the email.
Well, I don't want any future emails from Gary, president of the Sam Monson Fan Club, LLC. Is this a thing?
I doubt it. I mean, I suspect that's humor. But having said that, I haven't checked if it's a registered company/trademark yet.
What have
It
you
may
really
well-
done to earn the people's trust?
I've just been myself. You have been out there soliciting, begging, bribing for emails. I have just been me. And apparently they come flowing in like this.
All right, I'll be myself more often. Number one, Mr. Monson. I found PFF when wide receiver drops frustratingly took me to a Google search for a site that actually tracked and punished wide receivers for them. When will receiver interceptions finally come to the mainstream? I see no reason why a quarterback should be punished in the stats column for an interception caused by stone hands or spack hands. Is that paddle-handed spack? Is that how you say it?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that Irish enough? Or a wide receiver screwing up a route that is blatantly obvious, like the one Antonio Brown did in Week 6 versus the Chiefs. A simple R-INT column, receiver interception, to add to the interception to the receiver and remove it from the quarterback would be nice to see. Even more context at both positions.
Yeah, and the second one there is about dropped interceptions for defenders, which we track.
So I think we had a preseason article just highlighting last year's dropped interceptions. Is that right?
It's the kind of thing that we do track on the back end, and we haven't ever put it anywhere, which we probably should do going forward now that we're in our kind of design phase of the new fancy PFF down the line.
Well, let's do this
we'll
right
get some
now.
Dropped interception and some interception by other players thing. So what we had always on the old premium side, and I think it's in Elite now on the SIG stats thing, is interceptions when targeting receivers. So we can tell you that DeAndre Hopkins has had 6 interceptions thrown when targeting him. But actually what does make more sense is to tell you how many interceptions a specific player actually caused.
Like Kelvin Benjamin.
Or Des Bryant, one of his PDs.
Saves.
I don't know, one of his PDs was basically dropping a ball that ended up in the hands of a defensive back.
Right.
So, if you count that as a Des Bryant interception, I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. The only thing, I guess, would be how many of those actually you get in a season, because for a specific individual receiver, I can't see it being that many.
There's only a few. I mean, so Kelvin Benjamin, he actually, we blamed him for the one on Sunday against the Chicago Bears. He gets absolutely owned on the route. Cam has to kind of throw it blind. It looks bad, but it's a slant, and Kelvin Benjamin, who is 6'5", 240, is expected to beat the cornerback to the spot. Cam has to throw it blind. The cornerback beats him to the spot. It essentially turns into an interception. Kelvin Benjamin has, in fantasy, guys generally love Kelvin because of the big plays that he creates, but he's had like 3 or 4 per season when he's been healthy of either a wrong route or a wrong route depth or not looking for the ball or getting bossed at the line of scrimmage.
But that's probably your high watermark.
Yes, exactly. That's my point.
It probably makes more sense from a quarterback point of view. How many interceptions?
How many of your receivers? Right.
How many interceptions can you take off this quarterback because of his receivers having been the problem?
Look, I'll do this. I'll do it at the end of the year, when we might roll it up into a PDF as well and say, how about that, for our Edge or Elite subscribers? We'll see. And essentially we do that with turnover worthy plays. We're not going to give the quarterback a -1, -1.5, or -2 on a play like the Ben Roethlisberger Antonio Brown play, where Antonio Brown completely stopped his route. If he had continued his route, the ball's on target, and it goes right to Marcus Peters for the interception. That's a 0 expected. That's not docking the quarterback. So we do have the data to say these passes should have been intercepted, and we could also probably put like a percentage to. This one should have been intercepted 80% of the time, 60%, 40%, and then these other interceptions never should have happened. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll whip that up and put it together.
Yep, I like that idea.
Your fans are kind of smart. Sam Monson Fan Club, LLC. Did we, what's this? We have a big white space here.
Yeah, these are I got a flood of emails that came or the other day from Taylor, and then this is one that came right after last week's mailbag, so it was put on the sheet way before the other ones.
Is this a good one?
I don't know.
Before I get into it?
Read it.
All right. Love the show. Thank
Good
you.
start.
Quick question for you, hoping you can confirm I'm not crazy. Count me among Packers fans who are not Mike McCarthy fans. I could go on for a while about exactly why, but I'll pare it down to one observation that I'm hoping you can help. Confirm and explain. Oh, one, confirm, and two, explain.
I'm not very good at reading.
Bad reader. First down, Rodgers incompletion, likely a Martellus Bennett drop. 2nd and 10. I am convinced no coach in the NFL calls a run play on 2nd and 10 anywhere near as much as Mike McCarthy. The way the Packers have traditionally ran the ball, poorly, you are basically guaranteeing that you will face a 3rd down where even the best teams only convert about 50% of the time. I understand you give yourself a chance at having a more manageable 3rd down, but wouldn't you be better off giving Rodgers 2 shots at getting 10 yards to say nothing of the fact that he could complete a short pass or pass short of the chains that would almost certainly gain more yards than the inevitable 2-yard run? Can you confirm he does this more than anybody else, and can anyone justify his decision for doing it so frequently? Looking forward to your answer. That's from Andrew B. I have to say, the 2nd and 10 run that's one of the most frustrating things, I think, for fans in general. It's not just Andrew B. and Packers fans. I think across the NFL, you get general fan backlash for A, the 2nd and 10 run, B, the 3rd and long draw,
yes,
and C, the 3-man rush. I would say those are the things that just get fans fired up that don't make sense on the surface. Why would we ever rush 3? Why are we running a give-up play on 3rd down? Why are we running what seems like a give-up play on 2nd down? I will say 2nd and 10, so we don't have the Packers numbers directly in front of us. I'm pretty sure I saw 2nd and 10 as the most run-heavy down in the NFL a couple years ago. And that is just like when you're coming through the ranks as an NFL play caller, I feel like it's the first page. It's like, all right, if 1st down fails, we got to run the ball. 2nd and 10, you got to run the ball, get back in a manageable 3rd down. That's how they've all been trained up.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it's just the game has changed from when that was actually accurate. You know what I mean? If you had a chance to, what you really want out of 2nd and 10 is like 5 yards.
Right.
You know? You want 5 yards back and put yourself in 3rd, and we can get this territory. So what you're asking is, what play have you got that is most likely to pick up 5 yards? And it almost certainly is not a run play. You're going to have a bunch of passing plays sitting there in your offense in today's NFL that are designed to pick up 5 yards pretty easily. You know, a quick hitch somewhere, a speed out on the edge, a simple hitch on the outside against some off coverage. You've got plays in there that should pick up 5 yards relatively easily. You know, it's why 3rd and 2 is a passing down, because your best chance now to pick up 2 yards is with a passing play. You have a bunch of high percentage passing plays like the Patriots have in their entire offense that they've built on for years. You know, that's what that offense is, designed to get you 5 yards every single time you pass the ball. That's what you should be doing on 2nd and long. You should be trying to get those 5 yards back through a passing play, not by running the ball up the middle when they're expecting it now, because everybody runs the ball on 2nd and long, and you're probably going to get stuffed.
Absolutely. I'm with you, especially when you have Aaron Rodgers. So Rodgers is the guy. He just doesn't have a ton of games where it's like 40 attempts, 45 attempts, 50 attempts, right? For such an elite quarterback, there are a lot of games where he only has the ball in his hands 30, 35 times, which is really low in today's NFL. So I would be all about putting the ball in his hands. Green Bay does have a good screen game and all that stuff, but they run these RPOs as well, where he can pull the ball and just chuck it with that quick release, get the ball out into the flat to Randall Cobb, and they do plenty of that stuff. It's not all 2nd and 10 runs just intuitively when I'm looking at it, but hey, I'm with you. I'm all about putting the ball in your good quarterback's hands more often. I'm anti-run game.
Anti-run game.
Yeah, I mean, who needs it? It's less valuable anyway. A quick reminder that this episode is brought to you by PredictionMachine.com. Prediction Machine, a new generation in sports analytics where they simulate the game 50,000 times before they're actually played. Make better picks with proven data-driven analysis. Subscribe at PredictionMachine.com today and earn a $5 credit that can be used towards the purchase of any package. So yeah, I would say throw the ball more. And look, like I said, Rodgers doesn't have a ton of games. You see Brady, you see Peyton, you see Breeze. Those guys have a lot of games under their belt historically where it's like you're going to chuck the ball 45, 50 times. Part of it's game flow, but part of it's like we're not even going to try to run the ball. We have this elite quarterback. We're just going to throw it. Rodgers just doesn't have a ton of those games. So he doesn't have a ton of those like 400-plus yard passing games and all that stuff. I would just put it in his hands. Let him win it. Throw every time.
He has always been more about efficiency than sheer volume.
Yes.
There are Peyton Manning-style quarterbacks out there that are all about getting the 300, 350-yard mark. Rodgers is all about not throwing an interception and being as efficient as humanly possible.
Yeah, but that should work on 2nd and 10, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, look, almost every single team in the NFL, their best play to pick up 5 yards should be a pass of some description. Maybe if you're the Jaguars, that's different because you have Blake Bortles and your entire offense is built around running the ball. So if you're the Jags, maybe your best bet is to just throw Leonard Fournette up the middle again and see if it happens this time. But for pretty much everybody else, your best play should be a pass.
I'm with you, man. Let's do it. Keep chucking the ball. What do we have? Do we have anything else here, Sam?
I'm tapped out of emails.
Nothing through.
Did you scour Twitter? Because I didn't.
Oh, man. This is poor preparation here. I could have sworn that I saved one.
Yeah. How's that worked out?
I have this one saved that's hashtag Team Steve from 6 days ago.
That feels like
that's not a
just
question.
Something for your own edification as opposed to something we can actually react to.
Well, okay, this is the one that I saved. Okay, this is from Callum W. White. He asked us some stuff before. So this was different. This was more about something in our grading. So I wrote about Deshaun Watson this week, and this was from the GIF or the GIF. I'm calling it a GIF because
nobody will be calling them GIFs. Even look, the guy came out. The guy that invented the thing came out and was like, "No, this is."
I have thoughts on this.
It's pronounced GIF, right? But he came out too late. You can't come back 10 years after people are already calling it GIF and go, "Actually, by the way, you're all wrong. It's pronounced GIF."
But here's the thing.
Too late.
When you invent something, you don't have the right to change the English language. Right? Like, you can't invent something and then tell Webster how it's pronounced. That's my thought on it.
Look, I'm okay if he'd come out right away and said, this is how this is pronounced, and everyone had taken to it right away. Everyone had taken to it from the beginning. Fine. But you can't come along, like, after it's already established and say, actually, this is completely backwards. No, I'm afraid that's not how we pronounce these things.
Yeah, I just... You don't give a gift to people on Christmas, is what I'm saying.
True.
It's a gift. I mean, I'm saying he's changing the English language.
Yeah.
Plus, it's an acronym. It just doesn't make sense. And the first word's graphics. I mean, come on. It's a GIF. So I gift, you actually did, and you sent it to me, Deshaun Watson. It was a dropped pick 6 from the Bengals game. And the point that I made in the Deshaun Watson article, which was basically trying to say, look, since he's become a starter, he's been a middle-of-the-pack starter from a grade standpoint. He's 5th in the league in passer rating. He's leading in ESPN's QBR, and even some of the ESPN people were asking us, like, why is there such a big discrepancy? So I had to write it up, and I basically highlighted a bunch of plays like this that while I know QBR claims that dropped interceptions and stuff are a part of their model, they're not. I think they're more a part of their model as in they ignore them rather than downgrade for them. And I even asked them about Alex Smith's touchdown last week. He threw a touchdown that was literally dropped by a safety, went right through his hands, and then caught by the wide receiver for a 63-yard touchdown. And I said, what about that? That's a terrible pass. That should be intercepted. And they said, oh, he'll still get credit for it. Maybe a slight downgrade for an underthrow, but he'll still get a lot of credit for it because of air yards. So that's just a little insight into QBR. So I had to write this up and show Deshaun Watson's dropped pick 6. And Callum says, he's asking about, does this get a grade as if it's a pick 6? I said, yes. But it's not necessarily the pick 6 part about it. It's just we're grading the misread of coverage, the throw directly to a linebacker, the fact that when you do that, it's picked off 60, 75% of the time. That's bad.
The point we always make is it's not playing what if with games.
It's
everyone
what
says
did you do?
You're grading almost plays, but that's not really what you're doing. What you're doing is you're saying that on this play he threw the ball directly to a linebacker, and almost all of the time that ends up in an interception, which is a bad play. So the throw doesn't change just because that linebacker dropped it.
Absolutely.
The result changes, and that's fine. So he dodged a bullet and statistically got away with it, and generally got away with it. But it's still a bad play, and we're trying to evaluate how well a guy played. Therefore, we're still downgrading you for the play. Just because he wasn't punished for it on the field doesn't mean he should escape being punished for it in grading terms, because you're trying to find out how the guy played.
Exactly. And the QBR guys, the ESPN guys, did say to me, they're like, hey, QBR is trying to isolate the quarterback's contribution to the play. And I'm like, hey, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But when Alex Smith throws a pass that should be intercepted, his contribution to the play is throwing a pass that should have been intercepted, not throwing one that luckily landed in his guy's hands for 40 air yards, because air yards are a huge part of the QBR system. Air yards need a ton of context, from jump balls to busted coverages to this. So that's not really isolating the quarterback's contribution to that play. His contribution was throwing what should have been a pick. But Callum says, thanks, and I may say your tones are dulcet as well.
No.
That's what he said.
Well, he may have said it, but he's wrong.
I guess I asked pick six especially because does the risk of it going the other way like this make the negative grade higher than a similar misread or throw in the center of the field where a return for a touchdown is less likely? I would say kind of yes and no, right? It's how bad is the interception. So I think we're grading more on...
Yeah, but broadly, yeah, we will give an extra negative for the ones where, it's typically your sort of out route to the sideline where the cornerback jumps it, and the only thing that is happening from that point is he has a walk-in touchdown.
Right.
So that is a worse play to throw an interception on than something over the middle where that guy still needs to navigate his way back through the entire offense in order to get to the end zone.
Right. Essentially, the grade will encompass, does it give them a free pick six opportunity? How bad is the misread of coverage? How easy is the interception that you're giving them? All those things are kind of rolled in. I will say, though, the throw doesn't change. So if he gets tackled before the end zone and it's not a pick six, or whether he does end up as a pick six, that doesn't change the grade. We're grading the throw and the read. So good question, and always trying to give you guys some context as to how we're doing things here at PFF. So we do appreciate those context-like questions.
Yes, we do.
We're recording early morning here, and it's a little different for us.
Early morning and in the middle of a construction site. There's like jackhammers and diggers and all sorts of stuff going on outside the building.
I hope everybody's not hearing that in the background.
I don't think they are. I think our podcast nook, closet, whatever we call this thing, is pretty well
the
buttoned
nook,
up.
the closet. If you guys send us some beautiful artwork, maybe it'll end up here in the nook. Of course, we have the...
I forgot to put up my Bo Jackson.
You have Bo Jackson. We've got some good stuff coming up here. We got the beautiful MS Paint Hail Mary suggestion, which, again, between that and then the backwards pass rusher, changing football here.
The backwards pass rusher, I need to see that. So I just want to see somebody attempt it, because I don't know how somebody would react to that.
Can you at least you could stand in the way of him, right? Even if you don't block him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that the league knows what the rule is there. Like, you can't block a guy in the back, but in theory, presumably the back can't block you either. I mean,
I feel like we need Dean Blandino on here.
We do.
For like once a week, for every Wednesday, to just be here while we're answering these things.
How would this be officiated, Dean?
Well, how about the fair catch thing that came up this weekend, right?
You wanted to bobble the fair catch all the way to the end zone.
And then we're getting tweets left and right like, hey, guys, what if you bobble the fair catch all the way to the end zone because you can't interfere with the fair catcher?
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure you can't do that.
I haven't found out why, but I'm 90% sure that would be illegal somehow.
Yes.
If they don't allow the holy roller touchdown, or the fumble rooski or whatever it is.
Right. There's no way you could just volleyball the ball up to yourself.
They figured that one out. They must have figured out the fair catch thing.
Maybe the rules aren't as stupid as we think. All right, that'll do it for the male version. Of course, we have Mike Renner and Will Montgomery doing their usual offensive line discussion. Let's go to those guys now.
What's up? We're back with another great segment about offensive line play. I'm Mike Renner here with Will Montgomery, former NFL offensive lineman. And we're going to talk a little bit about one of the analysts here, Kevin Ringrow, suggested to me last week. He wanted to know what all goes into changing teams. Do you have all these secrets that you spill to your new team about about the scheme that they ran at your old place? If you go to a division rival, are they asking you stuff? So you changed teams a number of times in your careers, played for 5 different NFL franchises. What is it like when you go to a new team and say you're playing your old team? Are you trying to give secrets and hints to the guys on your new team?
I think a lot of that stuff is overrated to a degree. As far as the plays go, every week, everybody in the NFL can see what plays you're actually running. So if you're a zone team, guess what? You're a zone team. If you're a power ISO team, you're a power ISO team. I think there's maybe some philosophies or things of that nature, or if you're backed up and, all training camp, you hit that play action pass out of your backed up scenario instead of trying to pound it up 3 times. So it's maybe just some general philosophy things you might say. And, if there's a random tip here and there, I think, the coaches or some of the players may take that as well. But when you're playing, I think sometimes too much information is overload, because then you're thinking, okay, what are my keys? What's this? What did the new guy in the team say that is this special code word on 3rd and 12 when they check to this? So sooner or later, you just need to shut out the noise and just play and react, and that's basically, the bottom line.
There are a number of other things that go into switching, and I figured as much. Like, there's only so much. One of the biggest sort of misconceptions is that there's this almighty scheme in the NFL that you can't figure out. It's like there are about 6 or so run plays that are ubiquitous throughout the NFL. There's some window dressing you can do. You can, shift tight ends, but when it comes down to it, there's inside zone, there's outside zone, there's, ISO, there's power counter, and that's probably right there 85% of all run concepts in the NFL. Like,
right.
Would you agree?
Right. Yeah, I would agree. And over the course of my career, I've played on teams that favor, the power, the counter, the man, basically your wide body, heavy O lineman type schemes where you're playing in a phone booth, the inside zone, because quite simply, you're not quick enough to run the outside zone. And generally when you're on those teams, when I was with the Jets and the Panthers, and also my last couple of years, when we were in Chicago and Denver, we also kind of favored those run downhill, type of schemes. And then you generally have your bigger O linemen. So, okay, this O line is supposed to be good in pass pro and good at running downhill runs. And on the flip side of that, during my Shanahan era with the Redskins, and obviously anywhere they've been, and Coach Kubiak and some of their other disciples who, I don't know exactly. I'm sure there's a couple other zone teams out there, but they prefer the smaller, quicker O linemen. They're generally not as good in pass protection historically. So that's why they run the ball, at a higher clip. I remember there was the one year in Washington, I think 2012, where we were running the ball like 60% of the time, which is leading the NFL in actually percentage of run plays. And then the next, probably one of our biggest play action shot, our most successful passing plays was the play action off of the zone. So if you're in a game when we're down 3 or 4 scores and we have to pass, okay, we're playing with like a 290-pound left guard, a 300-pound center, 300-pound right guard. And so maybe we might not anchor as well, but guess what? The rest of the game, running, play action, and things of that nature, we're going to be quicker than the D-line and able to stress those gaps for sure.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to also touch on, we mentioned that there are only these handful of run concepts in the NFL, but even when you go and watch a Mike Shanahan or Kyle Shanahan team run outside zone, it can look different than say a Bill Callahan run team running outside.
Right.
There will be differences in the way what you're asked to do as an offensive tackle, as an offensive guard. When you have a shade, something like that, they'll ask you to do different things. Did you come across that in your tenure when you would switch teams? They would ask you, hey, on inside zone, instead of really trying to get around that one tech and trying to stay flat to the line of scrimmage, they wanted you to turn your body right away and just push them out, just try to get as much lateral movement as possible? Or was there sort of inside zone every set of the way you went?
Right. I think most of the teams actually, whether they're running inside zone or outside zone, they essentially want the back to press it and then eventually cut back. So if you're that front side tackle, you're really never trying to hook the defensive end. You want to throw your hat outside, make him appear that you want to hook him, and then you want him to stretch all the way to the sideline, and you want to – they always say the coaching tip is with your backside hand, grab claw, have a strong backside hand so they can't throw you off. Well, I've done that and been called holding many times.
Yep.
And then I get bitched at for the holding call. So somehow, some way, you're supposed to throw your hat outside and prevent the guy from shedding you when the ball does cut back. Occasionally, once or twice a game, we'll call especially if it's a toss scheme where it's such and such zone tag with an outside. So this one is getting outside no matter what. And the tackle guard, everybody is selling out to hook block. and we're telling the running back, run to the sideline. And that's almost really to set up the rest of the zone plays, the rest of the game. So, okay, we captured the edge in the first quarter on play one. Now the rest of the game, I'm sure their defensive line coach just bitched them out for losing contain. So now they have to stretch, which will help out the outside zone because you can stretch them. The ball will cut back. And then even on the inside zone, a lot of times even at center, if we had an inside zone called, I would just say, screw it. I'm just going to simulate an outside zone here. I would throw my hat hard front side, make that shade run, especially if it was a younger guy who he was really concerned about holding his gap. Now, I feel like the better shades in this league will almost let you reach them. But what they'll do is they'll force your body into the gap. So now they can't run front side. So they're basically controlling both gaps, the backside gap with their body and the front side gap with my body. So if you do reach a guy, then you kind of want to be able to pin him right there. But if you flip your hips, give up ground, and you reach him, but you're getting pressed into the gap, that really isn't doing your team any favors.
So would that, from a coaching standpoint, would guys, like you said, you would just do that on your own? Would you have an offensive line coach at one of your stops say, hey, don't do it? I don't know. Like, from a coaching perspective, were guys telling you those tips and tricks, or was that kind of just you learning on your own?
Well, when I were in the off season, sometimes I would like to see what the Pro Bowl centers and guards, like how are they doing this? Because there's certain blocks that are just difficult. In the zone, the starting point when you're doing individual is 2 hands under and up, like, the forklift. Okay, 2 hands under and up. But, Snacks or whoever, some humongous D lineman can still just sling me like a rag doll. So now I might need to take my backside hand, and maybe that won't be under and up. Maybe that'll kind of catch inside, and that'll at least help me for the cutback lane. But then there's other times, and you have Linval Joseph or somebody like that who just has really big, long, thick, strong arms. If I wrap with my inside hand on Linval Joseph, he'll just stab my chest and drive me backwards. So depending on how guys play it, I would shoot my hands differently. If you get a big, strong D lineman that likes to, shoot his hands to my chest, then okay, I have to shoot 2 hands under and up to his chest. Otherwise, I'll get walked back. There's other D linemen that play high and play with wide hands, and they just want to snatch you down. So I would almost kind of play the snatch game with them. If they want to snatch me, I'm not going to allow them to snatch me. If they want to press me, I'm not going to allow them to press me. So depending week to week, I would actually change my technique. Now, sometimes you might hear a random tip or point, but generally, the coaching tip was, an inside zone, get your hat to outside eye or whatever. On outside zone, get to outside shoulder. But on both of them, have a strong backside catch hand because when the ball cuts back, you guy just can't sling you off. So then you're like, okay, well, that's a good coaching tip, but how do you actually do that? That have a strong backside hand. Okay, I have a strong backside hand and got called, a couple times for holding, and then you would get bitched at for holding. So and there's also another subtlety to holding in general. You can get away with like a grab and a tug, but once the D lineman, which I hate when D linemen do this, even if that ball does cut back off your block and then they dive to try to make the tackle.
Oh, yeah. That's the classic
as an O-lineman, you're just finishing that block. Like when they're diving, their feet aren't even on the ground. So it's easy to pancake them in that scenario. But when they dive and their hands are in the air, it's almost like they're saying, hey, call a flag. And you pancake them, then that's a flag. So you almost have to, when they go to the dive mode, release your hands and then go to the belly flop technique or the airplane, because that will save a holding call. Because I've had many, BS holding calls just from finishing a guy when he's diving to make an arm tackle. So, a lot of these things you just kind of learn by watching the older guys in the league do it. I mean, there's a lot of good O-line coaches, but very few of them have actually played, at an elite level O-line themselves. So maybe there's some of these things that they just don't know. So, I've heard a lot of good things about, some of these coaches, who have played. You don't have to play. Obviously, look at Bill Belichick. He's a pretty good coach. I don't think he has a huge playing career, but some of those things you just have to learn.
So you're trying to the one thing I gathered from that was the benefits of finishing a block sometimes don't outweigh the risks of it. That's what I gathered from that.
Yes, well, depending on your hand placement, whether it's under and up or wrapping it, I was a big fan of just going to the wrap technique where I would throw my hat front side. So, okay, the front side gap is taken care of. And I would wrap my backside
all the way
hand.
around him.
If he tries to throw me off, he can't. But I would allow myself one or two tugs and then let go, hopefully timing it up perfectly with the back hitting that hole, because once that guy dives, you have to let go. Otherwise, those idiot refs will throw the flag.
Sounds like you're still holding him, though. Sounds like that should be a flag if you have your hand wrapped all the way around.
Well, I don't know how you're supposed to block without holding
No, I know. It's like the whole conundrum.
To the days where you just use your forearms and do it that way. Like, as long as the guy is in front of you in your shoulder range, you really should be able to do whatever you want. And if you watch the film, a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys will literally bear hug with two arms outside, and when the back, hits the hole, they'll just let go. So that's basically what's going on anyways. It's just a discrepancy when the actual flag is thrown.
Yeah. Let's get into a little more about the sort of advantage aspect of knowing. Do people keep their same line calls from year to year in terms of, audibles, that sort of thing, what they're using, or even week to week? Can you glean some insight from that? I know you said you don't want your D-line thinking about it, but can you, do you have any sort of, does that happen at all? I don't know.
You're saying when I'm changing teams?
Yeah, you change teams. Do you know, like, the call, do they keep the same calls from year to year?
I can give, maybe a couple little key tips here and there. I know just as a center in general, we'd have a lot of different calls. Most of them are either R words or L words. For an example, if I'm sliding to the mic, it could be Ram or Lion if the mic is in the box. If the mic is outside the box, it would be a Roy or Lou. That means, okay, we have the 4 D linemen and this guy, and that's it. Now, if I went to like a Ray or a Lee call, that means we have the 4 down to the mic plus the Sam and the backside tackle is sifting if the will linebacker comes, inside the defensive end. So there's different R and L words, meaning you have an exact guy. There's different R and L words, meaning that you basically take the most dangerous. And that does vary from team to team. And I know defensive linemen have their own R and L words. What's funny about defensive linemen, especially when you're watching on tape or, in person, when you get to a 3rd and long and you see a defensive tackle point to his other defensive tackle buddy and he points at him, he says, "Hey, you first. And I'm like, man, are they this dumb? Or are they asking who's the penetrator on the TT twist game?
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, they would be literally figuring out who the penetrator is on the fly. And then they go, you first. I'm like, well, I am standing right here. So either they're trying to bait me, into thinking there's a TT game, or there is a TT game. And more times than not, if you just look at them and you can, see the body language of those guys talking. Now, I remember also playing the 49ers, Justin Smith back in the day, and he would literally get to the line of scrimmage and literally lean his head over and listen to my call. So if I made any kind of an R word call and we were down a couple scores, he'd be like, all right, guys, they're sliding you over there. We got the one-on-ones over here, this and that. So I'm like, man, this bastard literally knows all of our calls. So I would try to make the calls, in the huddle or as I'm walking up, because those veteran guys will use those calls against you for sure.
Yeah, so it does seem like you can figure some of that stuff out, and especially there are times when guys guards will align like a half yard, like a little bit behind a center, and you're like, okay, that guy's pulling on this play.
Right.
How often do you think defensive linemen just knew what was going to happen on a play? How often were you?
If you're a good defensive lineman, there's a reason you're good. So instead of just lining up and blowing up the gap, you do read the offensive lineman stance. Especially when I'm at center and I know one of my guards gives away his pull stance and he gets in a really crappy stance on his heels and no weight on his hand. And I'm looking at that shade or the one tech, and he should be eyeballing the guard. But when he sees the crappy stance of the guard, then I see him shift his eyes to me like he wants to murder me now instead of the guard. I'm like, oh crap, the guard totally gave away his pull stance, and this is gonna be a really hard back block.
Yeah.
But switching gears back to some of the code words and stuff. When I was in Denver, the entire offense was code words. So whatever zone play, whatever protection, whatever check and audible, there was an actual word for it. Like inside zone, right and left would be something like buffalo and badger, like a little strong animal. And we had the alternate code words off of that. And if we use those words too often, then the following week we would do a dummy audible to badger, which would be, the inside zone right. The defense would hear badger. So in the previous week on the TV copy, badger meant zone right. So the defense would sell out to defend badger, but lo and behold, it's actually a bootleg left. Nobody's covering the tight end, red zone, touchdown. So sometimes you can use the code words and that information against the defense if they think they know too much.
That's a really good point. And I'm not surprised that someone like Peyton Manning would. Was that a lot of that came from him, or was that coaching staff in general?
Well, a lot of that did come from him. When I was in Denver, when I first got there and I looked at the playbook, it wasn't like the plays were difficult. It was I had about a 10-inch stack of index cards I had to study all the vocabulary and the different sets of code words to just run zone or power or ISO or any of the protections, because there was like I said, the alternate code words in addition to the regular code words. And if a receiver was uncovered, there was a yellow check, and then that's just one of the things that you did in training camp. So, when I became the starter there mid-season in the center quarterback exchange pre-practice, he would test me to make sure I knew my code words. So he would literally go through the gambit of code words and random obscure checks that you did like week 1 in training camp. And if I, screwed one up, he would let me know about it. And then I would go home and study for like 4 hours and hopefully wouldn't screw it up the next time. But that all that stuff is definitely a competitive advantage when you use it correctly.
That's great. That's a great story. All right, one last thing, and this was something I never had even thought about, or that didn't even cross my mind before I brought this up to you that we were going to talk about switching teams, and it was basically where you live when you go to a new team. You, at the end of your career, spent 1 year in Denver, 1 year in Chicago. You obviously weren't on super long-term contracts, weren't going to pick up and leave your whole family to move to places like that. How does that work when you go to a new team? Do they pay for your facility, for where you stay, or how do you have to find your own living space, or do they help you out at all with that sort of stuff?
Right. Well, what also matters, whether you're single, whether you have a family, and like you mentioned, short-term 1 year deal, multi-year deal, franchise deal. Earlier in my career, I was always just scraping by to make the team. So, I was just, okay, let me see if I make the team, and then I'll sign a 1 year lease on an apartment or something. A lot of guys who were more conservative than that would just stay at an extended stay. So they would be literally day to day, week to week. There was also, a story of the old Denver kicker, Matt Prater. He notoriously stayed at an extended stay for like 5 years, and everybody called him cheap and yada yada. He made the Pro Bowl. He said, all right, screw it. I'm finally going to buy a house. He bought this dream pad, it had barbecues in the off season, pool, great view. And guess what? He got cut that training camp.
He literally just signed another extension today. So maybe he finally bought another house out in Detroit.
Well, he has a pretty sweet pad in Denver that he has not stayed in during the regular season. And like myself, when I was with the Jets, I made the team. I was on there for a handful of weeks, and then I said, all right, I'll sign like a 6-month lease. Well, guess what? A month later, I get cut, and I'm still on like an ironclad locked lease. So I'm paying for when I'm not there. So, there are some guys that will go out of their way to try to get outs in their lease. There is a guy on every team that can recommend a few places to stay or whatever. And at the end of the day, you just kind of go through player recommendations or whatever the case may be. But and even later in life, as I'm finding out, I had, my first kid, my 10th year in the league. So it's all right. It's not just myself. It's my wife. It's my kid. Some people have dogs. I know of some of my teammates who don't want to bring their kids out of school and bring the dogs and all this for a 1 year deal that they might get cut, mid-season. So some people travel without their families, and that is definitely something to consider.
Good stuff. Well, thanks so much for all the inside info once again. We'll be back again next week. Now back to Sam and Steve.
Thanks, guys, and that'll do it for us today on the PFF podcast, our favorite episode. It's all about you guys, and your questions and your comments. Email us at podcasts@profootballfocus.com. Hit us up on Twitter at PFF_Sam, and I am at PFF_Steve. We'll have one more episode. We've got the Week 8 preview coming up to wrap up the week on the PFF podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. Tons of new content 4 times a week. All right, guys. Thanks. We'll talk next time.